Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. We also do have a few that we're still trying to catch up with the past couple weeks, so we'll get those in there, but we'll try to speed through. It's another freaking big week of comics. So look at that, another freaking big pile. Let's start things off with Predator #1, written by Ed Brisson with artwork by Kev Walker. This one's been a long time coming. It was delayed because of the lawsuit with Fox and Predator, but that's all been settled. So I also think they waited till, because there was the recent Prey movie, the new Predator movie that was on Hulu. So this has nothing to do with this. What this is, it takes place in the future in, I think, 2056. I think, let's look. 2056, yes. So what it is there's a girl, Theta, who her family is like on a mission to check out planets and stuff, and to catalog what's on the planet stuff. And while they're there, a predator shows up, kills the crew and her parents, and she survives. And then when she grows up, she goes on this mission of trying to hunt the predator that killed her parents. So in a way, it's kind of that flip of, like, instead of the predators being the hunter, they're kind of being the huntee at this point. And so what she does is she finds a planet that has a predator. She fights him, kills him, and then basically gets, I guess you could say, the black box from the predator's spaceship, and uses it to find out where that predator has been, and if it was at that planet where if it was the one that killed her parents. So far she hasn't found it, and then she's also stolen the spaceship that she had, that she grew up on. And so there's kind of that where she's kind of like gone rogue. And it's an interesting story. I have to give Brisson that I think it's an interesting concept, kind of flipping the coin, where the predator or the hunted. And I liked Theta. She's a really interesting character and everything. And of course, I think he did a nice job of giving her a nice backstory. And I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's still good. Kev Walker's artwork is nice. Has a little bit of Mike Mignola feel to it, but that's not a bad thing. It's nice looking artwork, and I think it's an interesting story. So I think if you're a Predator fan, you're going to enjoy it. I think the question is, if you're not a huge Predator fan, I think there's enough here to definitely give it a whirl and give it a check out. Next up, we have the Deadliest Bouquet #1, written by Erica Schultz with artwork by Corlina Borelli. So what it is it's a murder mystery. Rose finds her mother dead at their florist store, and so she contacts her sisters Poppy and Violet, who's are a bit estranged, but Rose is the one that stayed with the mother and run the florist. And so the sisters come back to help Rose with, and of course, to find out who murdered their mother. And so what it is Poppy's kind of, they get along, but Violet's the one that, took off early. She's like, I don't have anything to do with the family. And we find out one of the main reasons that she left was that her mother killed her father, and they buried him in the backyard. So she was like, I don't even think she wanted to come back for this, but she did because of her sisters. And so it's a pretty basic murder mystery. And then of course you have the kind of the animosity between the sibling sisters. I think it was an okay story. I don't think the story necessarily blew me away. I think where I struggled with this book was with, unfortunately, the artwork. And it's not that Borelli's artwork is bad. It's just there's kind of a stiffness to it, and it's very it's very basic. There's like not a lot of backgrounds and stuff like that. It's really just kind of, it's really kind of flat. It's like I said, it's not bad by any means. It's just, it's kind of disappointing. And then you have a story that is pretty basic here. I don't think, once again, I don't think it's terrible. It's just really, it's not very compelling. I mean, it wasn't like I felt a huge reason to come back for a second issue. And I think that's kind of where it fell. And that didn't help, but then you had kind of so-so artwork, and I think it was really kind of disappointing. Next up, we have James Bond 007 #1, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with artwork by Marco Finnegan. So what it is Bond goes on a mission, and the mission kind of goes awry because the person that is helping him steal the information from a computer gets killed, and what it is it seems to be, it may have been kind of a setup where there were supposed to be like 3 guards and there ended up being 15, and so Bond's like, hey, I was tipped off. He barely escaped. He got wounded while he was escaping, so M doesn't retire him, but he kind of puts him on leave. And so he's on leave, and he gets a call from Gwendolyn, who is another agent. And so she says, hey, I need your help with this. I know that you're kind of on vacation right now. And that's kind of set up. And then we find out that Gwendolyn may have ulterior motives, or not really what we think. Johnson's story is fine. It's a nice Bond story. I don't think it was anything. It didn't bring much new to the table, but it did its job. I think where I struggle with the book was Finnegan's artwork is really kind of basic here. It really just, unfortunately, that happens with a lot of Dynamite books where they're just they're kind of okay looking, and in this case, it just has, it's very basic. It once again, it really has just a lack of backgrounds most of the time, which is really a big pet peeve of mine. And it just came off as okay. I think it just, I mean, at this point, we've had so many Bond films, and there've been tons of, Dynamite's done tons of comics. I think it just falls into that. It's just not quite good enough. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's quite good enough. And that's kind of where it landed, unfortunately. Next up, we have Love Everlasting, written by Tom King with artwork by Elsa Cartier. So what this is so the story starts off. So you have Joan. She's from a small town, so she moves to New York with a friend. She moves in with a friend of hers, and her friend is going out with this guy George, and she's struggling to get a job, and then her friend says, hey, well, George needs a secretary, so maybe you could help. So she kind of, first time she sees George before the job, she kind of falls in love with him, and then of course as a secretary, it's like, oh, I kind of fell in love with him. And so you find out that they end up kissing, and George is like, oh, this is not good. It's not appropriate. You're my secretary. And so she's like, she's going to go home. And then her roommate's like, well, you can't go home because you got to, stay for my wedding. And she's like, and then she's really upset because, like, look, I'm in love with George and you're going to marry him. And she's like, no, I have another man I want to marry. So there's that story. And then it goes to a second story. It's set in the 60s, so that's like set in like the Mad Men type time period. Then we have one that's, I guess you could say, like also in the 60s, but kind of like, so you have this, like, she falls in love with this singer, kind of, I don't want to say beatnik, but kind of, hippie-ish singer, and it's the same woman. It's Joan. And it's the same character, and she's like, well, what would George think? And then you go to the third story, which is set in the wild, like back in the wild, wild west, and it's her. And so it's interesting because what it is first of all, it's classic romance comics. God bless Tom King for bringing romance comics back, because they were really big in like the 50s and early 60s, and then they just kind of faded out. And honestly, I can't think of a comic that has done like this classic romance. But what he's done is he's given it like a Twilight Zone twist of like, okay, is this the same woman? Is she like reincarnated because she remembers George and she remembers like these other time periods, and it's kind of like, whoa, what the hell? I mean, it's so you have just classic romance, and then you throw this Twilight Zone concept in there, and you're just like, it's like, it's weird and amazing all at once, and it's just, leave it to Tom King to come up with that sort of hook to this genre. It's quite intriguing and just really well done. And then you're just like, by the time you get to the end of the first issue, you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? I have no idea, but I am sold on this. And then you have Cartier's artwork, which is really gorgeous. It has kind of like kind of an, that animation feel, like a Bruce Timm, Darwin Cook sort of feeling, visual feeling that just is perfect for this story. It's really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And then, like I said, there's the whole Twilight Zone of like, okay, it's just weird and amazing. I loved it to death. It was a big win this week. Next up, we have Ghost Rider Vengeance Vengeance Forever #1, written by Benjamin Percy, with artwork by Juan Jose Rip. So what this is a one shot. So it's Ghost Rider's 50th anniversary, and it's kind of what it is so you have Johnny Blaze goes to this mysterious tattoo artist, and the tattoo artist, he's not just a regular one. What he does is he finds stories that the tattoos brings out your inner stories. And so basically what it is what Percy has done here. He's kind of telling the different Ghost Riders through the history. First, there's the Western Ghost Rider. Then there's kind of the classic motorcycle Ghost Rider. And then there's like the one where he's like more of a demon. So it's really kind of a greatest hits package, celebrating his 50th anniversary. And once again, it's a nice story, but I think in the end it's a nice read while you're reading it, but I just don't think there's really much that's memorable afterwards. You're like, okay, that's nice and everything, and it does its job, but I just think, like, next week, am I going to even remember or care about this book? I don't think so. It's not saying it's bad. I just think it's just nice. I will say, Rip's artwork's, it's a really good looking book. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous, but I think there's just not much meat on the bone here beyond the reading of it while you're reading it. It's nice, and it's a nice history lesson of Ghost Rider, but there's really not much else after that. So take that as you will. Next up, we have Samurai Doggy #1, written by Chris Tex, with artwork by Santos. So the basic premise here is that the mom has a litter of puppies, and somebody comes and kills the mom, and is trying to take the puppies, and this one puppy actually attacks the person and is left for dead, but actually survives, and is found by a robot crow. And so it basically turns into Lone Wolf and Cub, where he is now seeking vengeance for his mom and trying to locate his brothers and sisters. That's the basic premise here, and it's nice. I think it's one of those things. The question comes down to, like, Tex's story is all nice and everything. It's basically it's like it's kind of like a Akira Kurosawa type thing, like I said, Lone Wolf and Cub. But the question here is what really is going to make this different. I mean, just changing it to a dog and a mechanical crow is all nice and everything, but where are you going to go with this? I think that's really the thing, because it's all nice and everything. And I will say, Santos's art, the artwork's really nice. It's a good looking book. I love Santos's, use of layouts and everything. But ultimately, for me, the question is going to come down to, where are you going to go with this? And that's going to be a key. I definitely, I'll check out the second issue. But it's kind of one of those things. It didn't bring much new to the genre beyond just like, okay, instead of a guy, it's a dog. And that's all neat and everything, but for me, that's not going to be enough going forward. If the second issue just kind of continues that, but hopefully that Tex has a twist in mind in the second issue. So we'll kind of go from there. Next up, we have XMen Legends #1, written by Roy Thomas, with artwork by Dave Watcher. So what these stories are, this is kind of a reboot of the last version of XMen Legends. What these do is they take place in previous continuity of X-Men. So what this is, it's a Wolverine story that takes place in between Hulk 181 and Giant Size X-Men #1. So Wolverine is working for the Canadian government. He's Weapon X, and so while he tries to battle the Hulk, he basically the government considers the mission failed, that he didn't do it. So they bring him back, but in the process they lose the Hulk. Because he's like, well, that didn't work out for you. So he has to go. He's sent on a mission again to go to try to find the Hulk. And he's sent with another mutant who's basically made out of diamond. And when they get to this research center, they don't find the Hulk. They actually find a mishmash of some of the original X-Men, Polaris, Iceman, and also some of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So that's kind of the twist that Thomas has done with that continuity in between those two stories. The thing I do like about X-Men Legend is it's not. Once again, this is not really heavy into continuity, because I think most people know that Wolverine was in 181, and then of course most people are familiar with Giant Size X-Men #1. And so it's pretty easy to get into. You just know that Wolverine was going after Hulk. And so that's nice, because all the current X-Men books have, it's like a road, this giant map of like, well, this book ties to this and this. So the nice thing about X-Men Legends is it's just, it hits eras that you're maybe familiar with, but also I think if you're not super even familiar with it, I think you can just pick this book up and read, which is kind of nice, because none of the X-Men books currently really are like that. There's just heavy continuity involved, and these are kind of almost standalone stories, which they are. So in that respect, I think it's good. The Watcher's artwork's nice. So if you're kind of looking for an X-Men book, you just want to read an X-Men book, these are definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have Godzilla Rivals versus Battra one-shot, written by Rosie Knight with artwork by Oliver Ono. So what this story is you have this girl, Robbie, who lives on the ocean side. And once again, humans are like... One thing you have to remember with Godzilla is Godzilla was the original Godzilla film's an anti-nuclear movie. It's saying that nuclear is bad. That's the whole point of it. So a lot of Godzilla's stories are actually, Godzilla is really trying to help humanity. He's not really necessarily a bad guy. He's sometimes portrayed that way, but really deep down, his original creation was he's there to help humanity, even though they don't realize it. So that's what Knight has done with this story. So Robbie is very fascinated with like Godzilla and everything, and people think it's, he's just a myth and everything. So what you find out is Battra is another kaiju that's living under the seaside town. And when he comes out, once again, he's not trying to destroy the town, but he's kind of there for a reason. So, of course, Godzilla shows up, and of course, when kaijus get together, it's like, oh, we got to start beating the crap out of each other. But then they discover that Battra's not really trying to, that like there's bad communication. Like they're maybe just, they got off on the wrong foot. And so what they figure out is Robbie figures out, hey, Mothra is like, he's friends with Godzilla, or she's friends with Godzilla. So maybe if we try to contact her, and so they contact Mothra, and Mothra saves the day. And, it's a nice, sweet story. I think what I liked about Knight's script is that she really does a nice job of creating the character of Robbie, where once again the Godzilla, Battra, the battle stuff's fine, that's easy. I think the key is you've got to come up with a story with interesting characters are interesting human characters instead of just like, oh, look, it's Godzilla. I'm so scared. And Robbie's not like that. Robbie is a smart girl and everything, and I really like that. It was really nice. Ono's artwork is really nice. It has kind of a sketchy quality, but I think it really fits a story really well. It just has a nice look to it. He has a manga feel, but it's a nice looking book. So I think it's well worth checking out. Excuse me. Next up, There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd #2, written by Ed Brisson, with artwork by Galvin Girdry. So what it is Patrick Todd has the power, the ability to make people do stuff. And so what we learned in the first issue is that he has bad people, people that are criminals but haven't been caught. He makes them go rob banks, and then they not only get on the hook for that, but the police are able to find out that they have other crimes. So he only chooses bad people to do these things. And the reason that he's having people rob the bank is that his mom's in a nursing home and he's having to pay for that. And so that's how he is paying for that. So at the end of the first issue, he's staying in a hotel, and one of the guys that works at the hotel figures out he's got money, so him and his friends rob him. So he has to go. One, they stole his laptop. It has his information. So he finds out who the criminals are, and so he has to go to the mall to get a new computer. And he does something, and I think this was a neat twist that Brisson done. That he hates doing his powers on somebody that doesn't deserve it, and that is really an interesting twist. And it really, I think, changes Todd's character, that he's not like, he understands, like, kind of like good and bad. It's not like, we learned that a bit in the first issue because he had criminals, but so then the police detective finds the guys that stole the money, and he's not that he discovers Patrick Todd, but he's starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together, that he understood the people that are robbing the banks are weirdly like, I don't remember why I'm robbing it, somebody told me, but I don't remember who they were. So there's a lot of things going on, plus his quote-unquote father, which appears to be maybe him, where Todd got his powers from, has now gone into the story. So there's kind of a lot going on. I have to give Brisson that he does a nice job of building on that first issue to the second issue. And Guidry's artwork is really nice. It fits the story really well. I'm really liking this book. It's a nice twist on kind of a superhero type genre a little bit, but more of a reality based sort of thing. So we'll kind of keep going. I like I said, I like the second issue, and it built nicely. Next up, we have Harley Quinn #19, written by Stephanie Phillips with artwork by Georges Duarte. So this is the second part. So we have Harley and her kind of Suicide Squad team going to the moon to get because this takes place in the final crisis where the Justice League is dead, supposedly, right? And so they're having to go to the moon to try, because Lucius Fox's son, his son is built him a spacecraft, and they're trying. He needs. There's some special apocalypse. Something on the moon that the Justice League has that he needs to try to help save the Earth, and so he's basically hired Harley Quinn and her gang to like go get it, and that's so they get to the moon base, and then you find out that there's some sort of alien something. Now whether this is the apocalypse thing, we don't know, but like I said, Phillips, story-wise, this is not overwhelmingly yet because we're only in the second chapter, but I think there's some interesting things. And once again, it's kind of a Suicide Squad type mission thing, and of course Harley's Harley. I think it's interesting. We'll kind of see, this is a weekly storyline that's going on. So we'll kind of see where it goes. Duarte's art's really nice. I'm not necessarily sold on this, but I do like some of the concepts that Phillips doing here. So we'll kind of see how it keeps going. But But like I said, I think it's interesting. It's not a high recommendation, but I think Phillips is a little bit more on track than when I first read the book. Next up, we have Starhenge #2, written and drawn by Liam Sharp. So once again, the thing that Sharp is doing here, it really reminds me a lot of his Brave and Bold that he did DC a few years ago, where it's really steeped in mythology, specifically Irish and European mythology, because there's like Stonehenge, there's Merlin and all that kind of stuff. So, but what he's doing is, so you basically have the stories. You have the one that takes place in the past, you have the present, and then you have the future. So we know that it's kind of, he's building on this mythology. We learned that from the first issue because Merlin shows up. But we also have like once again, he's kind of playing with this mythology and kind of having all these weaving storylines. Now, he did a lot of that similar thing in the Brave and the Bold that he did at DC. The thing is, and it I don't want to say suffer from the same problem, but it has the same thing where it's hard to read this as a monthly because there's so much going on and there's so much like underlying story that's kind of bubbling through each issue that it's a little challenging on a monthly basis. Now, this is going to be one of those books, if he keeps going with what I'm seeing in the second issue, this is going to be really interesting and quite good. It's really been good so far, but it's a challenge as a monthly book. It's really going to be great when you sit down and read it, because Brave and the Bold was the same thing. I really enjoyed it, but when I sat down and reread that whole thing in one shot, it worked so much better. It's obviously planned as, like a finite story. There's going to be 6 issues. It's just that the way he structures his story, it's a bit challenging on a monthly basis because there's so much going on, but yet it's also a story that washes over you. So once again, just be a little forewarned in that department, that it's the pacing is a little bit challenged for a monthly. But once again, one of the big reasons we all love Liam Sharp is because of artwork. The artwork's absolutely stunning, and I'm glad that he's doing his own story, because I think he's become, we've known he's a really good artist, and he's really becoming quite the storyteller. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. But once again, that forewarning, it's a bit of a challenge as a monthly book. Next up, we have one of our catch-up books. We have Jurassic League #3, and we have Jurassic League #4. They're both written by Juan Gideon and Daniel Warren Johnson, with artwork by Juan Gideon and John McKell. So once again, this is it's Justice League. It's dinosaurs. The bad guys, everybody's a dinosaur. So what we've learned is that the supervillains, there's kind of this head villain that is a god, and what they've been doing is capturing humans, and he's feeding on their souls. So the villains are basically trying to capture humans, and now the Jurassic League is trying to fend off the bad guys, and so that's kind of where we're going. So we finally learn who the big villain is, and of course this is not a shock, but it's Darkseid. And it's really quite, I think what I love about this book is it's just fun. It's just silly fun. It's pretty basic superhero stuff, and they're dinosaurs, and then you have the humans. I love that they have Batman as the loner, and he has like a little human that kind of is his Robin at this point. And it's just like, it's a fun all ages book. I'd say like 10, 11 up. There's a little bit of kind of blood here and there, but it's more, superhero-ish type violence that's not anything really terrible. It's just it's stupid fun, and I think that's what I love about the book. It's not trying to be more than what it is. It's a fun book. And Gideon's artwork's really nice. It kind of has a really kind of a really grungy type look, but it really fits this story so well, because it just has like a just it looks great. It's a really good looking book. It's a fun story. I'm having a blast. I can't see where they take it, see where they end up taking it. It's pretty basic stuff, but I love it. Next up, we have 8 Billion Genies, number 4, written by Charles Soule, with artwork by Ryan Brown. So really the big twist we have in this issue. Well, first of all, there's two things that we find out. First of all, the purpose of the genies that show up is when this apparently has happened before. We find out that the reason that the genies show up is that they need to thin out the herd. So what they do is by granting everybody a wish, there's the people that ask for the stupid wishes that pretty much die instantly, all turn into a dinosaur or whatever. And, so it's the thinning of the herd. We also find out that there's an interesting plot twist with the bar owner, which I will not reveal here, but it really changes the dynamic of where this story is going to go. I really like the fact that there's still some people who have made in the bar that have not made their wishes, so they still have their genies, that the genies give information, that they'll tell you stories, they'll tell you what's happened before, and that you're probably wise that you haven't made your wish yet. And also the fact that they're kind of starting to drink and party with the people because this has been going on for months. This issue, we really see a time shift where they've been there months and months and months. And it's, like I said, the twist in this issue are really quite fascinating. And I think we're also, the big thing is that Soule could have just wrote a story about, kind of the batshit crazy stuff of people asking for wishes, which is there, but he's really focusing on these characters that are in this bar, and we're really learning about them and how some of them are dealing with wishes, how some of them are just dealing with waiting to ride this whole thing out. So there's a lot going on here, but like I said, this issue is really perfect because this is the time to reveal your twist that you've already twisted. And I really like that. And once again, Brown's artwork's really nice. He's doing a good job. And this is a really good book, folks. You really need to be checking out. And they've already sold it as a series or a movie or something. I don't know. But I love the comic and I love the little genie guys. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 790, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, with artwork, with pencils by Emmanuel Lupicino, Jose Luis, and Eduardo Panancia. And then the inks are inks by Wade von Grawbadger and Julio Ferreira. There's also the Young Diana backup, written by Jordi Belair, with artwork by Paulina Ganchu. So this is the final part of the current storyline, with where Cisco has captured Etta, Steve, and Siegfried, and so it's just kind of the big finale of how Wonder Woman, basically they defeat the villains. I know it's a big shock. Sorry, spoilers. It never happens in a superhero comic. But I think it landed okay. I think this definitely this storyline was better. It really, I think the last one really struggled. I did like how they had Cisco and kind of made a really good villain out of him. And but ultimately I think it's one of those things where I give props to Conrad and Cloonan, because first of all, writing Wonder Woman is tough. She is hard. She's a great character, but she's hard to write especially on a monthly basis. And two, it's just it's hard to come up with really interesting stories for her. It's a difficult task, and we've seen it over the years. We've had a lot of great writers really struggle with this book. I think they're doing a decent job, but I think it's also, I'm having a little bit of a frustration because that first year story arc with her death and her trying to get back was really, really good. I think that was really solid, where I think the follow-up was really a struggle. This one was better, but I think they're still trying to find their footing after that big epic storyline, and I once again they're trying, but it's as a reader I'm struggling a bit. The artwork, even though it's by three different artists, is really nice. I mean, you can tell that you can see the style changes, but it's not super bad changes. I mean, they all fit together fairly well. And once again, I love the young Diana backup. It just sadly does not fit into this book, and it's a real shame. I really wish DC would understand this, because it's really good. It really needs to be one of those young adult kid books that DC has really been knocking out of the park. Bel Air and Ganshu are doing a nice job. It just does not fit with the main story. People who are reading this are not. It just doesn't fit, and it's just like a completely different audience. So, but once again, we'll kind of see. We'll see where they take Clunan and Conrad take the next story arc, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that they can hopefully build from here. And finally, this week we have Amazing Spider-Man number 7, written by Zeb Wells with pencil artwork by John Romita Jr. and inks by Scott Hanna. So after last issue's celebration, which was not very good, wasn't a good celebration, we kind of get back to our regular scheduled programming. So this issue we have Peter Norman Osborn invites him for a job. He runs into Mary Jane. Osborn did not set it up. But obviously, Peter's still struggling with her getting married and having kids. And the other thing that's really interesting is he introduces the Vulture. And Vulture's always been kind of one of those like so-so Spider-Man characters. And I really like what Zeb Wells does here. He introduces that his daughter has discovered who her dad is a villain. And she doesn't want to have anything to do with him, and it literally breaks him. So he's like, he's out on a vengeance mission to like just take out Spider-Man, because as far as he's concerned, Spider-Man's the reason that she found out. And so he is like turned into like, wow, like a pissed off villain, and it's an interesting take. I mean, because like I said, let's be honest, Vulture's not one of those, oh God, he's a great villain. No, he's kind of a goof villain, but Wells kind of remedies a lot of that here. So it'll be interesting to see where that part of the story goes. But I always say and this is what I'm liking about this book, is that Zeb Wells is writing Peter Parker. The Spider-Man stuff comes easy. He's focusing on Peter as a character, even when he is Spider-Man. And that's why I always say work on that. The superhero stuff is easy. As always, I'm not the biggest John Romita Jr. fan, but he's doing a nice job here. I think he's not as sketchy. It's a nice looking book, and I think Hannah's doing a really good inking job on him. And that Romita's always been dependent on a good inker, and Hannah is doing a really nice job. So I'm enjoying it. We'll just skip that 6th issue. If you didn't buy it, don't bother. Jump from 5 to 7. Skip 6. So that's going to do it this week. Another big week for books, but I think we got through them pretty quick. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner runs a great store. There's Annie, Eduardo, Wendy, Derek. It's a great store. Great customers. They offer a great pull service. Discounts for their pull service. They offer discounts on trades and hardcovers every day. It's a great store. And if you live more in the LA area, there's a sister store, same name, different owner, Pulp Fiction Culver City. Chris and her team, once again, they run a great store. As always, really support your local comic shop. It's really important. They're really the backbone of the industry, and they're the reason we get all these great comics every week. And as always, we end our show with Be Kind. Being kind is simple. It's free, and it can make your day. It can make somebody else's day. Times are tough out there on many different levels, and trust me, I know just as much. I struggle just as much as everybody else. But look, we get comics every week, and just be good. Be kind to each other out there. Kindness goes a long way, and we really need a lot more kindness in our lives. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And it's always appreciated you watching. And so take care of yourselves. We'll do more reviews next week. This is Steven from popculturemaven.com signing out. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.